Good morning. There you go. There you go. Woo! It's Friday. I don't know about y'all, but I'm ready for a nap. Okay. So, good morning to you all. My name is Lori Fahey, and I'm the president and CEO of the Family Cafe here. And no, thank you. But right now, I would like to ask you all to please stand if you're able for the presentation of colors by the color guard, and please remain standing until the guard has left the stage area. Thank you, and enjoy STAR.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting, and ne'er gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Woo! Let's give STAR another round of applause. Thank you. You guys see this one? We are so fortunate to have a board member, Star Fields, who has such a dynamic voice. And thank you to the color guard. Before we get started here, I want to say thank you and welcome back To those folks who don't know, and to those folks who are on the other end of this, we have this event. Anything that's happening in this room will be live streamed via Facebook. So if you're not sitting in this room, or if you're at your home on your couch, welcome. Welcome, we welcome you all. We wish you were here, and we hope you enjoy the event. Okay. And before I get to other introductions, there are some very important people in this room that I'd like to introduce you to because they're wearing a red chef's coat. We're going to introduce you to the Family Cafe staff members. Jeremy Countryman is the Vice President of the Family Cafe. Jeremy, could you please stand and say hi, hey. Joe McCann is my policy manager at the Family Cafe. Sarah is the event manager. Paula Roberts is a program manager. And I don't know if she's in the room or not, but Tanya Hansen serves as our financial administrator. So thank you. You know, we have a very small office and we couldn't do it without you and my fabulous board of directors. So very quickly, I'm going to ask for the board, if you're here, to please stand. Star Fields, you just heard from her. Wasn't that lovely? Jeannie Forthruber, Yolanda Herrera, Luann Long, Patricia Oglesby, Senator Ana Maria Rodriguez, Sharon Rousey, Angelita Salado. Jonathan Scheinman has COVID, so maybe he's listening. Sorry, Jonathan. Katie Smith, Tammy Turner, and Gil Williams. So I want to say welcome. So thank you. I'll also have the privilege of welcoming one of our longtime sponsors. And like I'm saying, without volunteers, we couldn't do it. Without sponsors, we definitely wouldn't be able to do it. So the next sponsor not only is a sponsor with us financially, but they also supply a lot of volunteer hours. So we thank them because we couldn't do it without the money for sure, but we definitely couldn't do it without the support of all the volunteers. And you'll see them there in the sea of orange out there, and there's many more throughout the field. Out in the event area. But right now, Nate, come on up. Nate is the president and CEO of Sunshine Health, which is a subsidiary of Centene. Sunshine Health is huge, and I'll let you talk about them because I just saw I'm doing his job now. Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, so Nathan Lansbaum here, CEO of Sunshine Health. Thank you to the Family Cafe for having us here today and for being such an incredible longtime partner with us. You know, what you do for Florida's families each year at this conference and every day in between is such an incredible joy to witness, and we look forward to many more years of this partnership to come. If you don't know who Sunshine Health is a comprehensive health plan based in Florida, serving over 2.5 million Floridians and over 1 million children and youth through our Medicaid programs, which include serious mental illness, the child welfare program, as well as children's medical services, which is a program that we operate on behalf of the Florida Department of Health. We are a company that is deeply embedded in the communities that we serve, and we believe in addressing the needs that go beyond healthcare, which is why you see us serving at food pantries, helping out with hurricane relief, hosting community events and educational events, and showing up here every year at the Family Cafe. We are thankful. And we've got over 100 Sunshine Health employees here, and they all clamor to volunteer for the Family Cafe every single year, and we're very proud of that. So now I have the privilege of introducing today's keynote speaker, Marlene Sallo. Marlene Sallo currently serves as Executive Director of the National Disability Rights Network. Marlene has an incredible background in leadership and advocacy. She has previously served in leadership roles at the McCain Institute for International Leadership and the Massachusetts Disability Law Center. And earlier in her career, she also served as an educational attorney with the Disability Rights of Florida, providing protection and advocacy to students with disabilities and children in the state's child welfare system. She was appointed by Barack Obama, President Barack Obama, to serve as the staff director of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights in 2013, and later worked for the Obama administration at the U.S. Department of Justice Community Relations Service as Chief of Staff and Senior Counsel. Needless to say, Marlene is a trailblazer. She is the first person with a disability to serve as director for the National Disability Rights Network, the first woman and the first Latina. That is incredible. We are all about to be impressed by her experience and her message and education for all the work that she's doing. And so I want to, there she is. Please help me in welcoming Marlene Sallo.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
And we'll see you later.
All right. Good morning. How is everyone doing today? Woo! It's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you to Lori for inviting me to speak. I am not going to lie, I'm nervous because it's important for me to be here with you today. And so I want to start off by giving each and every one of you a round of applause. The parents, the students, and the youth, thank you for being here. You guys rock. And thank you, Nathan, for the introduction. I will try to slow down because I tend to speak fast. I'm Latina, and I was raised in New York City, so we tend to go a little fast. So, but I'm here with you today to speak about belonging, right? To speak about that sense of, I deserve to be here. I belong here. It doesn't matter what my identity is. I am here and I am proud. And in the process of trying to figure out what I was going to say, I started looking into the history of the Family Cafe. So by way of background, I lived in Florida for 20 plus years. I was a special education teacher as well as an administrator in Miami-Dade County Public Schools. So Miami. I went to law school in Tallahassee at FSU Law, and worked at and did a little stint at the Children's Law Clinic, and then I practiced law in Central Florida, where I worked for the state of Florida as a child welfare attorney. And I did that for a while, and those cases, as you know, can be a little overwhelming. And then I represented parents. So the judge used to say, "You've gone to the dark side, Sallo." But in representing parents, I had the honor and the privilege of representing parents with disabilities who had had their children removed from their care simply because of their disability. Parents who were charged with neglect simply because they were living paycheck to paycheck, right? So we all know when you get disability benefits, it's kind of hard, right? And so thankfully, with my background, I was able to advocate on their behalf and educate the court and try again? Okay, good, yay. I was able to educate the court and the wonderful judge about what it means, right, to be a person with a disability. Even when we have all of these protections in place, do they really put us in a better position at times? And that is the million-dollar question. So, in doing my research about Family Cafe in general, I realized that Family Cafe got started in 1998, which, I gotta be honest, I was unaware of them in 1998. But look how many folks are here, so I feel like I missed out on something early on, so this is very impressive. And what I found was that the creation of the Family Cafe was due to the fact that parents and individuals with disabilities were looking for ways to understand how the systems that provide services work together. I'm still trying to figure that out, right? Like, we're still trying to figure, but you have this avenue. You have this avenue of information. You have this ability to come together here today in community, right? We didn't have that. We didn't have that a long time ago. So this is a wonderful thing. But what I want to really highlight is when I think about, how does that translate into our movement, the disability rights movement? I think it's important to take a step back and realize that disability rights and disability justice movement have been to our community is so important. And it's so ongoing. And they intersect with one another in such a beautiful way. But when I started doing, I hated history growing up. I really did. But now that I'm older, I love it. And when I started doing research into disability rights and the disability rights movement, I found out, and please forgive me if some of you are aware of this, but I found out that Indigenous people live their lives under the principle that all living things contribute to the circle of life equally and should be acknowledged and respected as such. Right? Imagine that. Not only that, but they celebrate uniqueness and accept diversity and differences in mankind, right? They believe that every person has a gift to offer. Every person, not just some, every person, whether it's a skill, an ability, or their purpose, right? And my purpose is to advocate. I'm an advocate, a zealous child advocate at that. So what we learn from the Indigenous community is that when there's harmony between individuals, communities, and the world, individuals will find and embrace their gifts and put them into practice, sometimes with the help of others, because we could all use the help every now and then, now couldn't we? So even though this is the beauty of the community, it wasn't always embraced historically, right? We know that. For centuries, our community was ostracized, institutionalized, discriminated against. We were not valued, and our rights were denied. We were denied the opportunity to offer our personal gifts to our community and to our society. And we were denied the opportunity to be seen and to be heard, to be self-sufficient, to be in community, and to feel like we belonged. And I know that we all feel like we belong here in this room, always. But we want that to be permanent and constant everywhere we go. And so that is so very important. But I want to highlight this and how bad it used to be so that we can now focus on how we got here, right? And what we did to get here. And so things have changed. They're constantly changing, and for the better, but there's still a lot of work to be done, in my opinion. So I'm about to give you a little history lesson, and please don't get mad at me. And hopefully you like history, but I think it's important to talk about the civil rights movement and how that intersected with the disability rights movement, because it was actually the civil rights movement that started the change in our community. And everywhere I go in DC, I tell people, hello, disability rights is civil rights, and civil rights is disability rights. So what I found when first arriving in DC was that the leaders in the disability community are not often invited to meetings that discuss housing, that discuss employment, that discuss voting, that discuss every single issue that our lives touch 24 hours a day. And so we've made it a point at NDRN to truly bring that home and to have folks give us a seat at the table, to have folks extend invitations to us so that we can be part of those discussions. But you know, Charlie Chisholm said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring your own chair. So we do, and sometimes we build our own table and then we invite people to join us. So we need to understand that. So going back to the civil rights movement, 50s and 60s, across the nation, disability advocates started seeing the changes that were being brought about by the civil rights movement. They started seeing the marches. They started seeing the sit-ins. And this was being effective, right? And it ultimately led to the passing of legal protections. Protections that protected your right to vote, and that protected your right to not be discriminated against based on race and color and national origin. But the civil rights movement wasn't specific to disability. So yeah, we intersected, but it wasn't specific. So we needed to do our own thing to make sure we were heard and that we were seen. But one thing for sure, we were both moving against the negative stereotypes. We were pushing back for political change, for our ability to live in our own homes in the community of choice, for our ability to work in our community, but most of all, for our ability to decide for ourselves and not have someone decide for us. So we mobilized, and boy, did we mobilize at the national and at the local level. And I gotta tell you, even today, local is where it's at. You want change? Go at the local level, because that's where the change starts. So we understood that the Civil Rights Act of '64 provided these protections, and it didn't directly protect us. So we saw the birth of what we call the independent living movement. And it took place early on in the 70s. And it was led by Ed Roberts and others with disabilities. And their goal was to empower people with disabilities to live independently and participate fully in society. Their goal was to make others understand the importance of accessibility, of equal rights, and of self-determination. So, as a result of our protests, we got the Rehab Act of 1973, known as Section 504, right? We all appreciate Section 504. The problem was that when they enacted Section 504, they didn't add any teeth to it. So we could say, oh, there are these violations taking place, but we don't have any way of fighting against those violations because we don't have the right for enforcement. But Section 504 covered public school programs, it covered public housing, public transportation, federal buildings. It was all about the federal building accessibility or any program, right, or building that received federal funds. So it was about accessibility. But as things would have it, right, we still need to be able to come after you because we have this law here, and the law says you're going to do A, B, and C. But I also know that the law says if I don't do it, you can come after me. So we started thinking, what can we do? So how many of you have heard of the Section 504 sit-ins? With our mother, Judy Heumann? So in 1977, disability activists organized a 26-day sit-in at a federal building in California. But across the US, we had sit-ins everywhere. And why did they do this? They were fed up, right? For years, they had lobbied and pleaded with lawmakers to see them, to hear them, and to act. So the Coalition of Citizens with Disabilities they said that if the Secretary of Health and Welfare under Jimmy Carter didn't do something to make 504 enforceable on April 4th, there were going to be national protests. And sure enough, on April 5th, they were everywhere. New York City, Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, Denver, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and Seattle for hours and in days, and in Washington, D.C. So we all know, that has its moments. And they camped outside of the Secretary's office in D.C. But in San Francisco, when the demonstrators showed up to meet with the regional director that worked with the Secretary from D.C. there, he didn't know what they were talking about. He didn't understand 504. He didn't understand what the asks were. He basically was unaware. So Judy Heumann decided, along with others, that if no one was going to take them seriously, no one was going to know what 504 was, they were staying in the building. And as I said, they stayed for 26 days, living in that building. And they had people supporting them. For instance, the city's mayor sent over mattresses, and he tried to arrange portable showers for them. And members of the Black Panther Party and the Gray Panthers brought supplies and meals to the activists for 26 days. Brad Lomax, a member of the Black Panthers who had multiple sclerosis, also took part in the 504 sit-ins, and he's a fabulous advocate. So think about this. The Black Panthers, who were part of the civil rights movement, joined in full solidarity with the demonstrators. In fact, they even put out a press release. And I'm going to read it to you because I just thought it was so important. Their press release, truncated, in part said, "The Black Panther Party gives its full support to Section 504 of the 1973 Rehab Act. The issue here is human rights. Human rights. Rights of meaningful employment, education, and basic human survival. Basic human survival of an oppressed minority, the disabled. We deplore how folks are being treated in the building, and we join them in full solidarity." So this is another example of community, the community that we experience when we come year after year to the Family Cafe, thanks to Lori and her team. Thank you, Lori. So as a result of these sit-ins, April 28th, 1977, they passed a regulation that ultimately led to the establishment of the American with Disabilities Act, which is important because that also covers private entities, right? Because the other act just covered public. So what I think is important here is to state what Judy thought was their position after the act was passed. She was at a hearing up in the Capitol Hill, and she was speaking, and this gentleman at the podium, an elected official, kept nodding his head, right, like in agreement. And she was irate. She's like, "Stop nodding your head. It's not like you know what we're talking about here. It's not like you understand." And that's what we loved about her, is that she was very upfront in always letting people know, we will no longer allow the government to oppress disabled individuals. We want the law to accept no more discussion of segregation. And that was the beauty of the work that Judy did and the disability rights movement did. And so as a result of that, we have these laws that provide services and protections for our community. I am a woman with a disability. My disability came on later on in life, but it's a disability, right? So it doesn't matter when you acquire a disability, it's a disability. And so we have these laws in place, especially in the school system. So I remember teaching, and it was my second month on the job. And I was brought in as a 3100 substitute, right? It's a permanent sub. The teacher that had been in the classroom had passed away from medical condition. And the students were grieving. And it was back then, it was a self-contained class. I don't like the acronyms they used to use back then, so I'm not going to use it. And the kids were having a really rough time. And so we're getting ready for a transition meeting for a young man who's aging out of special ed. And we'll get to transition in a second. And I remember we're at this meeting, and they asked him, what do you want to be when you leave high school? Like, what do you want to do? And this young man was in the JV football team. I think he was a linebacker. And so he's like, very proudly, I want to serve. I want to go in the Army. And everyone around looked at each other, and they're like, oh, you can't do that. You don't have the ability to do that. You can't pass the test to do that. And this young man, and this is why I said he was a linebacker, because he was very big and tall and wide, and you just saw his body language, and he just sunk into himself. And I thought to myself, do I really want to do this? Because I'm about to cry in public, because how do you allow a young adult to get to that stage in their school career and never have a conversation about what do you want? What makes you happy? What do you want to do? Right? And so I'm going to digress from what I wrote, because I got to talk about transition, because it is my pet peeve. It is truly my pet peeve. And hopefully no one has had negative experiences, and if you have, I'm really sorry. But I firmly believe that our children are covered by IDEA, and then once they age out, they fall off a bloody cliff. And there are no services available, or you have to fight for services, or you have to be on a wait list for 10 years to get services. And it should not be that way. Should not be that way. So I remember after that meeting having a discussion, right? So I'm a 3100, which means that, yes, I was a psychology major, and I took some education classes in college, but I didn't have all the classes I needed for special ed. So, of course, I'm taking them while I'm in the classroom because they needed someone. And I start to bring up what I'm learning in the books, and I'm like, well, what about this? And what about this requirement? And what about that requirement? And it, come to find out that the requirements aren't really focused on, right? We're not having those team meetings where we're bringing in individuals to the room that have worked with your child, that know your child well. We're not giving the opportunity for your child to be part of that meeting. And I apologize if anyone here has a school that does this, bravo. But in general, what I have found is that we're not asking students at the age of 14. We're not planning for transition. Where can we work? In Miami-Dade, I don't know if they still have this program, Project Victory. So they would take the students, and they could go work at Jackson Memorial Hospital, and some of the students would also get hired afterwards. It's a great program. And some of my students were in auto mechanics class. Do they still have auto mechanics? I would hope, right? Because we all could use some really good auto mechanics. And so but it wasn't uniform. It wasn't a uniform offering across all of the school districts. And so why do we do that, right? Because when we give students the opportunity to have a say in their future, when we give students the opportunity to let you know what it is they want early on, so you can bring them along and guide them on the classes that they need, what happens is they have this sense of pride, and they flourish as human beings. And we all deserve that, every single one of us. Because once you have that sense of pride, once you've flourished, then you get that sense of belonging because I'm in community. I'm with the people that I care about. Now, in preparing for this, I also recalled a negative experience that I had with my own child. So we were living in South Florida. We moved to Central Florida, and she went from only speaking Spanish to being in a school where no one spoke Spanish. And she didn't speak English. She was 2. And that was hard. And she spent about 4 months not saying a word to anyone, right? It was selective mutism. Like I think she was shocked by the change. And then we moved to another daycare. And she and the teacher did not mesh at all. She was in pre-K 3 at the time. And I remember the teacher saying to me, "She will not break me." 3-year-old. A 3-year-old will not break you. And she's like, she acts out, blah, 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 blah. What are you going to do? And by the time I'm already practicing law, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go to child fine. And I'm going to get her evaluated. And now you can't move her. And I took my child to child fine, and she was evaluated. And she has sensory motor integration concerns. She has high anxiety. She has some medical issues as well, but she's my baby. And you are not going to break my baby, right? Because, Mama Bear, nobody messes with Mama Bear. And I know the law, right? So, try. So I was able to get someone from the district to come in and observe her in the daycare. And they observed her 2 or 3 times. And the lady's like, well, what we're going to do is we're going to get a cardboard box, and we're going to put it in the corner. And when your daughter's overwhelmed by all the noises and the sounds, have her go in the little cardboard box and hide away from everybody. I'm like, what? No. We're not doing that. We're not putting my daughter in a box. We're not ostracizing her. We're not telling her to separate herself, because what I'm seeing is, we'll try it again. Okay. What I'm seeing is that the teacher is having a hard time understanding. So I want my daughter to be changed to a different pre-K 3 class. Oh, we don't want to set precedent. But we are. And so they changed her. Night and day. My daughter flourished with this other teacher. Night and day. And she grew into herself. She grew into herself. She wasn't having the temper tantrums anymore. She wasn't perturbed about it was night and day. And I remember the district calling a follow-up like 2 months later and me saying, yeah, it worked. Until this day, I don't think my daughter remembers what transpired. And I'm glad she doesn't, because she has grown into this beautiful, independent, young 24-year-old who kicks butt as needed, but has a heart of gold, who gives back to her community, and who understands the challenges that others face, because she has had to face challenges. And so isn't that what we want for our kids? We want them to thrive. We want them to be in a classroom that allows them the opportunity to be who they are, that allows them the opportunity to speak their mind respectfully. We all have to be respectful, but allows them to speak their mind. And that is the one thing that I find nowadays a little difficult at times to reconcile in some communities and things that I hear. So, nationwide, we're still seeing school push out. What do we mean by that? Well, a student with an IEP starts acting out or is having a bad day. We all have bad days. But they're unable to express the bad day they're having. And so the principal calls the parent or the guardian and says, come and get your child. Take your child home. But we're not going to mark that. We're not going to mark that. Why? Because the law says What does the law say? Once you're at a certain date, right? Once you're at, I think, 7 days, you have to start thinking about bringing the team together to have the discussions to see if what you're doing, what the student is doing, is a manifestation of their disability. So we're still seeing school push out, and we're still pushing back on that nationwide, all of the agencies within our network. But we're also still seeing restraint and seclusion in some schools. My goal in life is to see that eliminated completely, absolutely and completely. Not only in schools, but in RTFs, residential treatment facilities, which I know exist here in Florida and exist all across the US. And I won't go down that road because I'm really gonna get mad. But we're also seeing the fact that transition services and transition planning isn't happening in a timely fashion. By the time your child is 13 or 14, the school should already be having conversations with your child. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Okay, so you want to do this. All right, so what happens if this doesn't work? What would be your backup plan? Because we all have backup plans. And we all, it's just the way it is, right? So why can't our students, why can't our children also be allowed to have backup plans? And talk them through it. What kind of classes should you take in high school? Maybe what kind of clubs should you be a part of? Should you be doing some volunteer work in the community? Have those discussions. What support services, if your child requires support services, are we going to need? How do we connect you to those support services? Don't wait for someone to age out and then say, oh, there's a 10-year waiting list, right, for Medicaid. Let's not do that. So what I will say is that in my time as an attorney, as a teacher, and as an advocate, my sole goal has been to lift up the voices of students and children and youth with disabilities, to make sure that they're being heard when they're not being allowed to speak themselves, because that is what makes me who I am. I have been in courtrooms where they have brought in young men into the juvenile court, and they're, reading off the charges, and I've asked, do we know if this young man has an IEP? Do we know if this young man is receiving any type of support services? Sometimes the court looks at you like, what you talking about, right? Because there's no sharing of information, and I know FERPA and everything, but when youth are pulled into foster care, or children are pulled into foster care, or the juvenile justice system, or they're what we call dually involved, 9 times out of 10, they may need supportive services. A lot of them have IEPs, and it doesn't follow them. So there's no continuity of education. There's no continuity of support services. And once again, what is the message that's being sent to them? We don't care. We don't care that you have A, B, C, and D needs and that you get these services, but we don't care enough to make them deliverable to you where you are at. And that ultimately affects them in adulthood. And I'm going to stop talking about kids for a second. Yesterday I'm sorry. Let me calm down. Let me calm down. Yesterday I was with some feds. And everybody's going around the room, oh, we want this, we want that. And everybody's being so nice. Okay. So they get to me and I was like, why do I have to sue you to make a building be accessible? Why do I have to sue you if there is currently a gentleman incarcerated who is a wheelchair user who is unable to be in his own cell because it is not ADA compliant? Why do I have to sue you to provide behavioral services? And I think I said like 5 different things. And then it was like total silence. They're all looking at me like, la la. So I don't mean it to be I don't know. And I don't want to come across as an angry woman, but I do get angry. I do get angry because we have these laws in place. We have these services that our community deserves. And yet we have to continuously sue in order to have services enforced. We have to continuously file complaints in order to have services enforced. We have to continuously remind everyone that, yes, I am a person with a disability, but I am human, and I am worthy, and I belong. So, I mean, I could talk on and on, but is it okay, like, if I bring it? Okay, so I want to leave you with something, because I could talk forever, but I want to leave on a light note, right? So remember, the power in this room, right? The CDC at one point said 1 in 4 Americans have a disability. 1 in 4. So think about that power. When we harness that power, good golly, we can make some serious changes. So please remember that. Own your disability. Be proud of who you are, because we are beautiful inside and out, and we have a lot to offer. And don't ever feel like you need to explain yourself. Like yesterday, I was going to go on the plane. I need a hip replacement sooner rather than later. And yesterday was a really bad pain day. And somebody looked at me because I was going to go in for people with disabilities, and he was like, "You don't have a cane." I said, "I need a cane? Does it need to be, like, totally visible for you? Like, do you not see me?" Like, ooh, I had to calm down. Anyway. Sorry. Sorry. So there's a gentleman by the name of Steve Brown. He's the co-founder of Institute on Disability Culture. And I saw this quote, and I thought, this is it. To me, it was it. People with disabilities have forged a group identity. We share a common history of oppression and a common bond of resilience. We generate art, music, literature, and other expressions of our lives and our culture infused from our experience of disability. Most importantly, we are proud of ourselves as people with disabilities. We claim our disabilities with pride as part of our own identity, right? Claim it. We are who we are because we are people with disabilities. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we have a little bit of time, and Marlene has agreed to provide us with a little bit of time to ask some questions. So we do have some folks from the Family Cafe. They're in the red jackets that have microphones. So if you have a question for Marlene, we'll just take a couple while we have a little bit of time. Please raise your hand. So, yep.
Is Governor Ron DeSantis going to be coming tomorrow? No? Tonight?
No, he's not coming.
Who's coming?
Question for Marlene.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you for your wonderful contribution and your trailblazer that we all need. My question for you is, do you believe that we need more policy or that we need more policy implementation? What are you seeing where there's more of a void or challenges? Thank you.
So I think the foundation is there, right? It's definitely there. The enforcement is lacking. And it's not for the sake of trying. You know, in my position, I have the honor and the privilege of meeting with federal officials all the time. And I know for a fact that the civil rights organizations in each of the federal agencies receive hundreds upon hundreds of complaints, and they don't have enough staff to go around. That said, where's the enforcement at the state level, right? Where's the enforcement at the local level? And how can we continue to build upon the foundation that we have to improve protections even more, to expand protections even more? So I think it's a combination of expanding what we have, but also making sure that the policies and the laws that are in place are being enforced consistently, right? And in the same manner. You're welcome.
Hello, good morning. I represent Isaiah Village, and what we're running into is we're trying to find these wonderful people affordable housing. Okay, we have so many people that want to help and want to do this, and I know that our state has access to land they can donate. How do we get in touch with the person to get the land? That's all we need is the land. We'll take care of the houses, the people, everything. How do we get that?
Personally, I don't know how you can go about getting the land in Florida, but I would assume, is the land owned by the by the state government or by?
I've just heard stories about like Governor Bush giving 60 acres to one foundation. I mean, I think there is land out there. I just don't know where it's at. Who has access to that we can find out if there is land available, that we can see if we can get it donated to us so we can build. And when I say affordable housing, I mean $200 or $300 a month housing. I'm not talking about $1,000 or $1,500. That's not affordable to anybody in here. I'm talking about
Housing is not affordable right now to anyone.
So, exactly. Do you know who that I can get in touch with?
So the Department of the Interior deals with land across the United States. I don't know if they would be your first point of contact, but I can try to look into it and try to give you some resources. If I can find information for you, if I see you before the weekend is out, I'll try to look into it. But off the top of my head, I wouldn't know, and I don't want to misdirect you. But the first thing that comes to mind is Department of the Interior, because they oversee the land in the U.S. Sorry.
Excuse me, my name is Kevin Jenkins. I am an advocate for people with disability. I live in a retirement community. The one question is this: how do you get buildings that are rented by a property? It is the village's property that owns it. How do you update them better? For door openers. There is no door openers and there's no access. All they got is ramps. That's all they use.
So do they use the infamous, well, this is a historical building, so we can't change it? Because I hear that a lot, but I don't think the villages are historical, correct? No, okay. Call, if you are in, obviously you're in Florida, call Disability Rights Florida, because they would know where to point you in the right direction as to who would be your contact person locally to help you with that. I know that when I worked for Disability Rights Massachusetts, well, Disability Law Center in Mass, we would receive calls all the time, and we would take on some of those cases on behalf of individuals who were wheelchair users that needed so the doors to be retrofitted or the bathroom to be retrofitted. But every disability rights agency, you know, has their own list of cases that they can take on at any one point in time. So I would say call them to see if they can provide you with resources or help you out.
Question over here.
Hello. Wow. Okay, so it's a pleasure to be here. I heard you mentioned a little bit about transitioning, and I am a parent of a little boy who is, he's going to be 11 in August, and I heard that Miami-Dade has moved the transition age to 12. I guess my question is how can I be a part of it and make sure that he is a part of it and we are a part effectively and it's not being just done for us? Like, you know, any idea of questions that I should ask, what I can do, because I want to make sure that he has a chance.
Well, first of all, put the mama bear hat on, right? Like, not how can I be, like, I'm gonna be. Like, you call the school, hey, I heard the rules have changed, you know, up to 12, at 12 now, when you have start having these meetings, I need to be there. It's part of the IET meeting. So they should be folding you into it every step of the way. With your son as well, let's ask them questions. Maybe he doesn't stay for the whole meeting. Maybe at the age of 12, they opt to ask him questions offline, right? Not in the meeting itself, so it's not overwhelming. But let's start having those discussions leading up to the IEP meeting, the transition meeting. But also, ask, what does this look like? What will be the goals moving forward as we start to weave in transition planning for my child, so that when he's ready to graduate, we've covered all the bases, right? Ask them, what can I do while I'm at home, right, to get him to open up, and maybe he already does, about what he wants to do. And then how can I bring that to this discussion so it's the most effective for you, the team, as you're planning things out? You are his advocate. You are his voice. And that is a beautiful thing. Don't let any school district tell you otherwise. Please. And you're only his voice because he's 12, because, once they hit 14 or 15, woo, that's a whole other story.
Hi, my name is Kathy Sandiford, and I do agree with you on the fact that at the local level, we're making headway. And I'm thinking of Social Security money and how, they keep raising that limit, which is a wonderful thing, every time they raise the minimum wage. The problem that we're facing now, though, is every time they raise the minimum wage for someone who works part-time on SSI, that makes my daughter less valuable to her company, because she has to work less hours to stay under that $2,000 limit. Now, changing that $2,000 limit doesn't take money. It just takes a vote. Right.
It takes political will.
It just takes a policy change. And I don't understand why we're not addressing that policy change. It was a $2,000 limit in the 70s, and it is not equal to how people lived then. And what are we doing? Who can we contact? Who can we find out? What can we do? Because every year that our minimum wage raises, my daughter is less valuable to her worker. She cannot work the just basic 4 hours a day. So who can we talk to?
You have to call your elected officials in DC. I would say push back on Social Security. We, at the national level, there are multiple organizations working on this issue, trying to push back, trying to raise awareness. This is not a living wage. You all need to get it together. But there's woo, DC is just logjam. Yes, I'm sorry.
So we talk about transitioning and we talk about Social Security. There's no education. My son is 17, and so he's on child SSI. But there's nothing explaining, when they turn 18, they have to transition to adult. But who is there to teach us how to do that? What steps we need to take?
So, oh boy. We are failing our kids. I'm sorry. We're not getting it right. We're not getting it right. You should be getting information from the time your child enters high school. There should be ongoing conversations. Voc Rehab is supposed to be at these darn meetings to also have these conversations from the beginning with transition. I'll talk to you offline, because I'm going to get emotional here right now, because it's just not right. And that's why I say, our kids fall off oops, almost said something. Almost cussed. Our kids fall off a cliff when they age out, and there is no parachute. There is no saving grace. There's nothing. We're immigrants. right? Like, I immigrated to this country when I was 2.5. Well, not me physically, my family brought me, but it was like the language barrier was there. There was like the lack of knowledge of how things work in the United States. And so you have parents that also have disabilities who may have a language barrier, or they themselves have a disability. Like, why can't we break it down? Why is it so hard? Why is it so necessary to hide the 8-ball in some of the school districts? Not all, but in some, right? Is it because we're allowing the money to dictate what the child needs versus the child dictating what is needed? Like, that is the question that I've asked myself. And so, there are resources out there. The Disability Rights Florida has resources on their website about transition, about school, about getting services in school. Any materials available to parents should be accessible, language-wise. It should be accessible with ASL. It should be captioned if there are videos for you to learn from. Like, accessibility is front and center, but it's the school district's job and responsibility, based on the law, to give the parents the information that they need to help their child thrive. The buck stops with them, and that's why we continue suing. Oh, sorry.
So I appreciate that, but I want everybody to be able to go get some lunch. But Marlene, Sallo, thank you very much for your time. So we have a couple more minutes. So Marlene has graciously allowed us to a little bit more time here, and so she's going to be at the side of the stage. But before we do that, we do have a presentation that Lori wants to present, which for those of you that have been to Family Cafe know what's coming. That's not it.
Marlene, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. My hotel room will look nice.
Yes. No, Nate, they're not for you, so.
No.
Oh, I heard that.
Yeah.
That was cute. So those of you who have been here before,
Yep.
and those of you who maybe haven't, there is, I call it the story of the rose, the Family Cafe in honor of Justin Dart. How many of you do not know who Justin Dart is? Okay, he's the godfather of the ADA. We all have the ADA and have someone to be thankful for. His name is Justin Dart, and he passed away. However, afterwards, speaking with his wife, she allowed us to use his honor that Justin used to do when someone did a good job. So we think she did a great job today. What do you all think? So Yoshiko helped us and gave us a little printout, and I'm going to read it to you now. You know you've done something good when roses came to your door. So let me share this story with you. So we already talked about who Justin Dart is. Well, he was a great leader of the International Disability Rights Movement, a renowned human rights activist, widely recognized as a father of the American with Disabilities Act, or the ADA, or we refer to him as a godfather of the disability rights movement. Through the end of his life, Justin Dart remained dedicated to his vision of a revolution of empowerment. When Justin Dart knew that someone had accomplished a great feat or had done a great job, he sent roses to them. And to show how much he appreciated it and needed them and wanted them to lead on. Okay? You knew you did good when the roses arrived. So we thought this was a great way to recognize those who made a difference. So his wife, Yoshiko, and friends of the Darts allows the Family Cafe to carry forward this tradition. You got me thinking about
transition.
See, it's stuck now. Okay, so we wanted to recognize the good work and honor Justin Dart's commitment to people with disabilities by presenting the roses to the people that made the difference, both to thank them and to encourage them to carry on, to lead on. So now we say to you, Marlene, good job, and thank you for your caring. In the words of Justin, there's nothing I have accomplished without reaching out to empower others. As appreciation for what you have done not only today and for a good job through your work, we present you these roses. Your kindness will not be forgotten by the Family Cafe. Final quote, I carry out to you from the depth of my being, humanity needs you. Lead, lead, lead the revolution of empowerment. That's Justin Darts. That's his quote to each and every one of you. So thank you. And Marlene is going to go over there, and she'll take any questions that you may have. And you can have a little bit of time to discuss with her before the next breakout session, but don't go anywhere now because we have door prizes. Are you ready? Who does not have...
Okay, let her do the door prizes.
Who does not have a door prize raffle ticket? If you don't have one, raise your hand. Okay, guys, the Florida Youth Council members are going to hurry, and pass out the remainders. If you do not have a raffle ticket, raise your hand, stand up, scream, holler, let them know. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we did yesterday. Why were they passing out the tickets? Yesterday we had 2 leadership pre-conference events. One was a women's summit. About 158 women showed up for the women's summit, where it was an opportunity of networking, personal growth, and camaraderie among women with various stages of life who hold the diverse interests and needs but share a desire to take better care of their own health and well-being. So if you were at the Women's Summit yesterday, why don't you stand up and let me see you if you were there? Well, okay. It was only women, so if you men who are standing up, only women. Okay. We also had what we refer to as a family-run organization summit. They had a pre-con event, and we had about 60, I would say, in that room. I think it was one of the better leadership trainings that we've had to date. If you have a family-run organization or would like to join in our steps toward developing our voice, please join us. You can talk to Joe, he's in a red chef coat over there, or Yolanda, or, well, anybody in a red coat about joining our movement. And they also have a booth, and they're going to have some educational sessions today and tomorrow, and we hope you will attend it. How many people have downloaded the app? Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. One day we won't have this in our bags, and we'll all look to our app. The app will give you up-to-date changes. Jeremy is constantly updating the app. Okay, now we're going here. How many people still need raffle tickets? James, way down there. Okay, it looks like they're pretty good. So I'm going to ask Nate to help us with the raffle tickets, but I need the tickets themselves. The other half of the tickets? Great. Come on up, Alex. This is the first raffle here. It is a green stuffed dinosaur. It's rather cute and cuddly.
All right. First number is 511660. I think somebody just jumped up. We have a winner.
We have a winner? I want to hear it.
All right.
Winner, chicken dinner.
Yeah. All right.
This one, multi-sport, Nerf, ball set, soccer ball, football, basketball.
5117. This one goes to 511798. 798. Got to be present. 511798. I got to draw another one. 798, not here. All right. Number 2, 511338. 338. We got a winner. Come on up. Yeah. 338. All right. All right.
You want to announce what this is?
Yeah. Is this the last one? Is this the last one? Yeah. All right, so for the last one, we have a computer. All right. Hold those tickets. 511140. Oh, we have it. That's not one of our people. That's Florida Community Care.
That is?
Yeah.
Really?
It's not a Sunshine Health person. Just so you know.
Oh, I'm surprised.
Yeah. 140. And is that it?
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to say anything else?
Nope. No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I'm just going to tell them,
All right.
about what's going on today.
You go ahead.
Okay, just going to give you a little heads up of what we got left over on today. I want to thank you all again for coming, and for those of you at home, we surely do miss you. But today, after this session, there will be a short break, and what I encourage you to do is not only go down this way, but to the exhibit hall, but look at some of the entertainment options that are going to be happening this afternoon. Everything, again, is on the app, but for those who are not using the app, look in your program. Over the next day and a half, there's 220 educational sessions you can go to. There will be about 200 exhibitors. There's more than a dozen other activities. We have the sensory room, the old McDonald's sensory room. We have Zumba in the morning. We have everything you could possibly be thinking of that's happening. And let me just go over some of these highlights for today. One of the biggest highlights is the Summit on Disabilities this evening. Registration will reopen. We have the Discovery Hub. We have a quiet room for those who just really need to calm down and be quiet. And we have the U.S. NSU College of Law, where you can talk about supported decision-making. We have a book fair. There'll be book readings, dental screenings, sports ability sampler, where you can do sports events all throughout. And now I hope that you all will come back and see me tonight at 6 o'clock right in this room, and we'll have a lot more door prizes. So thank you so much for your time.